Kelly, you might mute your mic.
This meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the pledge of flag.
Never mind, my sound came on. I thought there should have been sound the whole time, but there wasn't. So.
And to the republic for which it stands.
Yeah, I got it now, so I hear it.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Thank you guys. We got people in all sorts of rooms and all over the place. So kind of exciting. Or just nerve-wracking, maybe. Thank you, Tammy and Peter, for all your help and work getting us set up tonight. Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and read our mission and vision statement. The mission of the Nampa School District is to ensure high levels of achievement for every student. Vision statement. Every student is fully engaged in extraordinary learning experiences, preparing for successful transition to the next stage of life. I'm super excited.
Yeah, so let's go ahead, Mr. Woolster-Hume. We're just going to give this over to you now. We've been waiting anxiously.
Hello, trustees, district leadership team. Foremost, we just want to express gratitude. Thank you for this opportunity. At Columbia High School, we have great educators and great learners. And tonight you get to meet a few of them. You'll hear from Avery, Curtis, and then Liliana, and then Zach, then David, and Mrs. Stevenson. And rest assured, I've already invited them, that when they're famous, they remember us little people and little Nampa. So I introduce to you the Summit Wildcat onboarding team, AKA SWAT.
So this is about how we became a group. The Summit onboarding team began with my English teacher. She brought together a bunch of students and just to kind of figure out what we want to do to help other students with this platform. We found that this was kind of a new language for students. They didn't really understand how to use it. We noticed that it was making it really hard for kids to understand their classes. So we then we brought together a bunch of students and teachers and kind of came up with different ideas that we wanted to come across and make sure that we are letting everyone know and teaching the new students about how to use this program. We began with collaborating with students and teachers about all the main topics we want to talk about. And we thought of every possible issue that we came up with to execute a plan for how we are going to teach these students and help them out.
The actions we took to begin living out our mission of teaching students, parents, and teachers how to use the Summit Learning Platform in ways they understood were to create tutorial videos. We created these tutorial videos that fell under 3 different categories. The first was Columbia culture, or as we call it, the Wildcat way. The second one was the basics of how to learn in Summit. And the last one was how to utilize and explore and navigate this platform. This led us to our purpose and a direction. The purpose of helping our students utilize this platform to know it better, and our direction was to get it into the hands of initially every student, and over the last 2 years, even parents and teachers. This in turn shaped our mission statement. Our initial brainstorm happened about 2 years ago, led by our principal and our advising teacher. This student-led and operated team has storyboarded, scripted, edited, and created videos, not only in English, but additionally translated them to Spanish. It is so cool how we have gone, it is so cool how this has helped not only our students, but their families to better understand this platform, to be more engaged, and to be able to experience a better learning environment. Not only has this action been beneficial for our freshmen and our students, but this has been beneficial for our team and our team members who have developed their skills and also grown in many other ways, such as leadership, video editing, creative skills, and also grown in web development.
So when we started out, our first goal, we had a few different goals, and those have kind of changed along the way. Our first goal was to assemble a team of students who were known to display leadership qualities and who were driven. We then wanted to create a set of videos that new transfer students or incoming freshmen could use to assist in the integration of Summit into their education. I actually joined the team the second year of production, so we already had a base set of videos done. So at that point, our goal was critiquing and making the videos perfect before we produced them out. We spent time editing and re-recording all the videos, as well as creating some translated videos to Spanish. As we know, we have quite a few students and parents who needed those. Once finished with the edits, we needed a way to distribute our work to the students and parents. That's where Zach came in. He helped us construct a functioning website where all the videos are located, along with several additional help tools and links for students and parents. Now that we're all close to graduation, our last and current goal is finding some like-minded students to take our place, ensuring the Summit Wildcat onboarding team is still around to answer questions, provide feedback, and continue to improve the website.
For the past couple of years at Columbia High School, we've introduced the website as a main asset to our team. With over 400 hours of work, I've had the great pleasure to create a platform that hosts our content and connects students. When Summit was introduced at Columbia, nobody knew what it was or how to use it. After the rest of the team made the instructional videos, we needed a place to put them. The website is a medium for students to receive help about the Summit Learning Platform. It contains a wealth of knowledge for anyone who uses it. It contains instructional videos, documentation, and Columbia High School policies for the platform, as well as troubleshooting steps to help reduce calls to the help desk. The site hosts a forum that allows students to connect and ask questions, as well as receive answers from the community rather than clogging up the help desk. The website is 100% student-run and maintained since day one. We have also hosted fun and engaging events through the website that encourage participation and lift school spirits. The platform is widely accessible to not just students at Columbia High School, but to anyone who uses or wants to learn more about the Summit Learning Platform.
Our team has grown and expanded a lot, but we're expanding this even further. Now that we've made the videos and a website for students to see them on, we've made new goals and plans. We've made new plans to move forward. We've been working to publicize our team to the school, as many of our students and staff don't quite know about our team fully yet and the resources that we have made available to them. We've also been pushing to expand our resources to more people. We've already had videos to help students and parents, but we're now currently pushing to go directly to East Valley Middle School to introduce them to the new learning platform that they'll be using when they move on to Columbia High School. And we hope that this will make it easier for them to adapt to this new learning style. We've also been changing our website to be easier to use, look more professional, and make it used more by our community, with ways for team members to provide advice to students and allow students to discuss and plan study groups on our website through our forums. We've also been pushing recruitment, and we'll be asking students who are interested and know how to use Summit to join our team. In short, we've been expanding those who are helping, trying to become more public, making the website easier and more professional and more interactive, and pushing for finding students interested in joining our team, as most of us are seniors and will graduate this year.
So, as you can see, we are really proud at Columbia of these kids. What started off as an idea has grown leaps and bounds and become completely self-sufficient and independent. These kids are doing most of this completely on their own and in their spare time. So we are very thankful that you guys gave us the opportunity to really highlight them and show you how amazing these kids are. And do you have any questions?
It was good work.
Very exciting. Any questions?
Go ahead, Betsy.
I just have a comment as a Columbia Wildcat myself. I just want to say good job. I think this is exactly what an amazing school district can do and a school can do. And my heart is bursting with pride at you guys. Congratulations for a job well done. As I've got 2 students at Columbia and 2 on the way, and I just think this is going to be an incredible resource for them. I'm a big fan of Summit Learning. It's been a great thing for my students, and I appreciate the work you guys have done to make this great for all the students at Columbia. Way to go. Good job.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you as well. What good work. I spent some time looking at your website, and I think Zach was responsible for that. Good work. It's very accessible, very obvious. I love that there are videos translated in Spanish on there as well. My one question was, are you able to track, or do you know how many of your student body are using your resources? Do you have any sense of that?
We do. Zach? And tell them about the people that are outside our school.
Sorry, I messed up.
So the website platform that we use does give us a counter that we can see how many people are actually visiting our website and from which geographic location. So we can see that there's X amount of people using our platform from within Nampa, Idaho. Now, oddly enough, we have picked up a lot of traffic from New York City. So,
really?
yeah, we do have a way to see it, and on average, we have about 100 to 200 between that range of students or users that access our website from within Nampa, Idaho each month.
Very good. Let me ask one more question.
Yes.
So just one last follow-up and that was, Zach, I don't know if this is for you or someone. So one thing I didn't get, and it may be just because of my own denseness, but is the Summit platform, is it a supplemental add-on to help students enrich their learning? Or is it integral and all classes use it?
So not all of the classes use it. It's mainly the core classes, so English, history, science, and math. Although there are a few other classes that use it, it's just an online platform to hold your classes. So there's projects and tests. So it's just another way to learn.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Westfall, did you have any questions? Okay, excellent. Thank you guys so much. We're so proud of the work you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe you said Eric was on there, correct? For Nampa Education Association comments.
Video.
He is.
You want to do something before we leave?
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Thank you. Trustees, Dr. Keller, Dr. Russell, NSD staff, students, parents, and community members, thank you once again for the opportunity to speak to you tonight as a representative of the professional educators who comprise the Nampa Education Association. The goal of the Nampa EA is to improve the quality of the educational opportunities our students receive by strengthening, supporting, and empowering our educators. It is therefore incumbent upon me as president of this organization to reach out to members regularly to get their feedback on issues that directly affect their capacity to serve the students in our community. Knowing that the COVID-19 cases in Canyon County generally and Nampa specifically have been trending down to the point where we could see Southwest District Health classify our community in the green or gray risk category, we asked our members this weekend in a quick survey to let us know their thoughts on what instructional model they believe would best serve our students and staff when we hit that COVID benchmark. Well over 100 members responded, and I wanted to share that information with you as you look toward the spring. When I asked what instruction should look like in the green or gray category, 75% of the respondents indicated that we should remain in full in-person 4 days a week with e-learning day on Wednesdays through the remainder of the year. Another 16% maintained that we could phase into 5 days a week of in-person learning under certain circumstances, but that we should at least begin the green-gray phase with all students in the building 4 days a week. Approximately 9% of those surveyed indicated they would like to see us go to 5 days in person as soon as we are categorized in the green or gray classification. When asked what factors they found to be most important in making this decision, the respondents stated that the e-learning days in which we are able to provide intervention and enrichment and to connect with students who are quarantined, isolated, or home for other reasons are strong influencers. The number one influencing factor, according to those who responded, was the desire to keep a consistent schedule throughout the remainder of the year. They also indicated that the health and safety of students and staff should still be significant factors moving forward. The respondents were approximately 53% elementary staff and 46% secondary staff, with 1% being equally secondary and elementary. So I leave that information for you. I just wanted to give you a heads up on kind of where our members are at. We figure that that's a significant sample size, and we just wanted to give you that information. This has been a difficult year, obviously. No one's denying that. But I am proud of and impressed by all the stakeholders in our community and the way that they have dug in, our students, our teachers, our staff, our administrators, our community, and we have reason to hope. And so here we go toward our last quarter. We also have reason to hope. This has been one of the strangest and most difficult years in terms of negotiations as well, as we are still negotiating this year's contract. But we do have reason to hope that we can get a deal done and get a deal done soon. And so we look forward to the gray skies clearing, and we look forward to moving forward together. And I want to thank you personally for all that you have done for our students. And I want to thank you once again for the opportunity to speak this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Chairman Simpson,
Yes.
quick question for Mr. Main, if you would stand.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for all the work you do on behalf of the NEA and for addressing us this evening with that hopeful attitude. It's appreciated. Did you say how many total number of respondents you had for that survey?
So we had well over 100. As I said, it's certainly not, you can't look at that as a definitive response, but I think it's a significant sample size. And again, it was a quick survey. We didn't have a lot of time to collect that data. But yeah, I believe that it certainly indicates, especially with the strength of those answers, it certainly indicates significantly where our teachers are at.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Westfall.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, I just want to thank Mr. Main for his service. I understand that there will be a change in leadership at the NEA.
That is correct. I am not seeking an election to a fourth year. But thank you all. Thank you all for working with me, for communicating with me. And I certainly have been proud to represent our teachers. I think they're as fine a teachers as you'll find anywhere. And I'm really excited to see them continue to grow, and we'll continue to dig in along with them.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, moving on to trustee comments, and hopefully you all were able to see the questions from the work session and then the answers that were provided within this section as well. And then we will go around and ask trustee comments. And so trustee Kip, I'm going to start with you.
Sure, yeah. I have a short statement I'd like to read. For those of you who may not know, there was a recall election on March 9th. It was a special election called for the purpose of removing me from my seat as your Zone 2 trustee. The opposition stated that I did not represent the majority voice in Zone 2. I'm happy to report that the election is over and I'm still here. The majority has spoken. I'd like to say a word of thanks to my numerous supporters who put up yard signs, made phone calls, gave donations, wrote letters to the editor, posted on social media, etc., and so on. Parents, teachers, students, all thanks for your efforts. And to the members of Zone 2, thanks for your affirmation of my leadership. The number of calls and messages, texts, emails I've received in support and congratulations has been quite humbling, amazing, actually. Can't tell you how much it means to me and Sandy. To those who voted for my recall, I realize you are disappointed. I'm sorry you felt I didn't represent your views. Nonetheless, I'm here to listen and will do all I can to represent you to the very best of my ability. Prior to all this, that was my desire. During this season, it has been my desire and will continue to be how I will conduct myself as your Zone 2 trustee. If you have a question, ask it. If you heard something that caused you concern, please raise it directly with me. Some have already done so, and I'm grateful. I truly want to represent all of Zone 2 well. This recall has been painful, and there's been a lot of misinformation, half-truths, and outright fabrications spread about me and others. I want to move beyond this, but some real damage has been incurred by this recall, and sadly, it doesn't seem to be over. I don't perceive it has helped the work of the district, and in fact, has only served to be a distraction from it. So to that end, I'd like to suggest something. No more recalls or differences of opinion. I'd urge those who are seeking to recall my colleague Kim Ross to stand down. She's up for re-election in November. I'd strongly encourage you to do your campaigning and voting then. Kim and I see many issues from different sides, but that's not reason for a recall. In fact, diversity of opinion is precisely what's needed on boards such as ours. More recalls are not helpful for the Nampa School District or for the soul of our community. It's been a divisive season. We need to heal. We need to move forward. I'm hopeful we can move forward together. My hand is extended. I hope you will accept it so we can get to what's most important, the continuing education of our young people, supporting our teachers and moving the Nampa School District toward being one of the best districts in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Kip. Trustee Russ?
That's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. No, I don't.
Thank you.
I think I would just like to say congratulations to Mike, and I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad your voice is part of our board.
Thank you.
Have a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.
Trustee Westfall?
Oh, I was just today before the meeting, I saw that Nampa School District had actually gone into the gray or green, and it was exciting and hopeful to see that the level of our district is minimal risk. Because frankly, I didn't think we'd see that this school year, and it was just a very hopeful thing. And I also appreciate your words, Trustee Kip.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you. Public comments, do we have anyone sign up? Okay, signed up. Perfect. I would entertain a motion on that. Sorry, I'm moving ahead. Is anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to move the approval of the February 16th minutes to just after the consent agenda.
So the first new business?
Yeah.
Okay. So remove that. Anything else?
Are we allowed to comment on them without removing them?
Yes, yeah.
I just want to say I'm really excited about some of these. It's like, love new playground equipment and using the levy money. And I think it's really exciting to see. And then we see some trips coming up and I just feel like we're breathing new, good, fresh air again. And I was really excited, you know, the sports schedules, it's the first season we've had this year that it's a full sports schedule. You know, it felt really refreshing to me to read these. And so I like Mr. Bain, I feel hopeful. So
Excellent. So I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Excellent. So it's been moved to approve the consent agenda by trustee Keller and seconded by trustee Ross. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Perfect. Approved unanimously. So we will go to new business with the first item being our February 16th minutes. Trustee Westfall.
Yeah, and I asked Chairman Simpson how she wanted to handle when we saw things in the minutes, like errors that need to be corrected. And so she suggested we do this. So if you don't mind, I'm going to make a motion and then I can talk to it. I move that the draft minutes include the following correction and in addition, the sentence, the apportionment payment received from the state was based on average daily attendance, be corrected to reflect the information shared by the superintendent and documented on the YouTube video and should read, the apportionment payment received from the state was based on enrollment. And that after the sentence, Superintendent Keller reported that a team has been working on budget planning for 2021-2022 school year. This sentence be added to the minutes. The superintendent shared the team is basing budgets and FTE projections on an enrollment of about 1,300 or 13,200.
Second.
Perfect. So it's been moved by trustee Westfall to swap the language there to accurately reflect the information we were given in that meeting, and then also the addition of that line about how much the enrollment number is being budgeted looking at for next year, and seconded by trustee Ross. And then trustee Westfall, if you'd like to speak to your motion.
If anyone has any questions, I just like documenting the number with that addition when we don't get written reports. So thankfully right now we have the YouTube, so you can go back and say, did I understand that correctly? And the first one, trustee Kip had asked about that. And I know that was a question we were all wondering, you know, Randy had shared the potential of $4 million reduction on our revenue if it didn't go towards enrollment. So that's it.
Any other comments or questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. Then new business item A, which is the 2020 graduation rate report.
And Anita Christensen, who's here, is to walk us through that. That's
So good to see you guys in person today. Thank you so much for the time to visit and share some information with you. Hopefully you had a chance to look at the information in there. For those of you new to the board, it's important to understand the four-year graduation rate is goes over a whole entire four-year period. So it's not just the kids who graduated in May of 2020. It's any kid who entered our district in 9th, 10th, or 11th, or 12th grade the 4 years before that, even if they were here one day. We have to account that they continued their education in the high school setting. Going and completing a GED program or doing something like that does not count towards that 4-year cohort. You have to be on track to get a high school diploma. Whatever program you enter, it has to be high school program bearing. So I say that to you. We were really curious to see the impact of not being for the last quarter of the school year in person. And we see in the state of Idaho, we actually saw an increase in the graduation rate for our 2020 cohort, up 1.4% to 82.1%. In the Nampa School District, we saw a decrease of 2.1% in our graduation rate, dropping us down to 79.9%. As we look at our different subgroups, we see that we still, as a district, in our LEP graduation rate outperformed the state. But an interesting note, it was actually one of our largest areas of drop as well, but we still outperformed the state, even though we have a lower percentage in our graduation rate overall, as well as with our economically disadvantaged students, we outperformed the state. So on the next page of this packet, it goes through and just kind of looks at the trends since the inception of the four-year cohort model. We used to only have to worry about the senior year. Did they start their senior year and finish it? And back in that 2014-15 school year, we switched to the four-year model and had to go over 4 years of information. And you'll see that many of our trends stay very similar, but the unique piece was our drop in our LEP and as well as with the state drop from our performance on LEP the year before. When we dig into our LEP population, I know I was very curious. Was it that we didn't have kids present to help them push across that line for graduation? Were we not able to capture them into summer school to finish up their program? And some of the interesting stats for our LEP group in particular is that a third of all of our LEP kids that didn't meet that graduation rate requirement, so were considered a dropout or not to continue their education. A third of them left us from March 2020 until that graduation rate. And so it was a big chunk of our kids. 1/3 over that 4-year period was during just those few months. Even if they had enrolled with us for summer school and finished those credits and graduated and met their credit requirements before the first day of school in August, they would have counted in this. We just weren't able to capture them back in to complete that program for us for this year. And so that is a group that we really did see that impact with pretty wildly. I know we kind of dug in a little bit more and I gave you lots of visuals so that you can look at the Nampa School District more closely and at the state. You know, I like to make sure you have many ways to look at that data so you can talk and look through it. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions that you have about the graduation rate.
Madam Chair, can you just remind me what the LEP stands for? I think I know in my mind what it means, but I'm sitting here thinking.
Limited English proficiency.
Oh, thank you. That's not what that was. Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions? Trustee Westfall.
Thank you. I was curious, as we look at our graduation rate and the state accountability system, do we have any schools that have been identified for not meeting goals?
Great question. It was one of those ones where they have not done a big push or pull into it, but I will say that Union unfortunately was already our lowest by far, and they dropped again by another 1.7%, pretty much the same as the rest of our schools, but they are in that improvement category for graduation rate.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, good. So Anita, I'm just curious with this change, I mean, it's been several years since 2014, 15 that it's switched the overall, which I think I like that we're trying to track kids over time. I think that's a good thing, although it makes it very difficult as a district. I get that, but I'm glad that we're trying to, watch that. Are we adapting different strategies in order, what have we developed since the way it was done just beginning to end of senior year is that part of what advisory is about, for example, or what are ways in which, are there things that we've tried or trying in order to address that?
It's a great question. Our college and career advisors have really been connected with some of our kids over that long term to support them and also that advisory component. I will say one of our big hurdles this year is we have to track all those kids who moved out of state out and we do this all in the fall of this school year. Wow. And many of those schools did not have people on campus to respond to our records requests so that we can prove they continued their education out of state. So that was a little hiccup in I counted everyone that I was like, I know I could get them at that school, was just open. Yeah. But is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Ledoux?
No, there are a number of things that we're trying to do in mentoring and advisory as is a big piece of that. I think what we see happening at Columbia is a really good example.
I was gonna say that one-on-one mentoring
Yeah.
that their program talked about was really impressive. So you have to track them even if they're out of state.
Especially out of state. If you move in state and you go to a public high school, our educational data tracking system that we have captures them for us. If you go to a private school or you go out of state, there's no way for us to track it except for to get records proving that you enrolled to continue your education at that high school.
So is this a federal tracking thing or just, I mean, is it just state?
The state.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That was a really tough pickup for us this year,
Yeah,
so we faxed and called and emailed and just getting a person was
Yeah,
tough.
thanks for all of your work.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Excellent, thank you.
I'll pretend to go sit down.
Oh,
right.
gotcha. I'm like, we're good. Sorry.
You can hide behind that.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Again, for those of you new to the board, I do an annual presentation on our bullying incident. You may wonder why that particular item gets pulled out separate. It's actually an item the state makes us pull out separate. In fact, the last page of your packet explains to you the data tracking we have to do. It has to be separate from our student information system. So we're not allowed to track those incidents within our student information system. The state requires us to track them separately to remove any identifying information from any incident of bullying. And then we collect that from all of our schools throughout the entire year to put together that data for our safe and drug-free schools dollars. So that's that last page. That's what we turn into the state. But we usually also go through and look at this. I will definitely tell you that while we saw a decrease in the number of incidents, I would also like to remind you we were not in person the last quarter of the year, so this will be a skewed year of data within that. But just kind of keep those pieces in mind, that we still continue to see a larger number of incidents with our male students compared to our female students. And that's really our big piece for that. We did, again, see decreases, but I caution us not to hang our hat entirely on that just based off of that schedule piece of it. When we go on to the next few pages, this is actually something we added in last year at the request of some of our board members to really dig in and look at drugs, paraphernalia, tobacco, and vaping in our middle and high school. We did a lot of presentations with our law enforcement partners to talk through some of these things last year. And really wanted to make sure that we did this as an annual report to all of you, kind of what our statistics look like. I will once again remind you that while we did see a decrease in the number of middle school suspensions because of those things, we actually saw an increase at the high school. And again, we were only there for 3/4 of the school year. It's an interesting component. We also did see an increase in the percentage of those incidents that resulted or a reference to drugs instead of vaping separate. And we saw a decrease in the combos. So those are often when we have vaping products that also contain THC and other things that then fall into that drug and paraphernalia category. In fact, we didn't have any of those combo incidents this year. We either classified it as a drug all by itself because there were not additional vaping or tobacco products present, or our just awesome continuation of 60% of those vaping incidents from the year before. We do continue to see a large number of vaping suspensions, right? Because again, it's not, it's completely against the rules, especially if you're under 18 to be participating in those activities. But just wanted to make sure we had a chance to see where those trends continued with our drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and vaping. I guess I didn't actually include alcohol because we didn't talk about that last year. Sorry, paraphernalia. Just a quick review of that. Are there any questions for that? For this packet?
I remember last year when we talked about this and we thought that maybe one of the remedies to help these kids and to see these numbers go down would be education and kind of in that health curriculum component. Just maybe an update on where we are on that.
I'm actually going to defer over to Mr. Russell on that.
Sorry, what was that?
Health curriculum related to paraphernalia, drugs, vaping.
Part of the health curriculum adoption, that would have to be decided in committee about what that actually looks like. That has not been part of the adoption cycle yet. When that does come up, we would do it like we would any other adoption curriculum where we'd have input from teachers, input from parents. So I think it's coming. It's not here yet. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, because I'm just following up on last year. That's what we talked about would be one of the, I remember just hearing one of the remedies and of how to help this situation.
It would be, there's also a grant we're looking at right now that we're looking to pilot in an elementary, actually be 2 elementary schools and then at Union High School. That would be around a curriculum that would teach students around about the dangers of vaping and what it can do. So that's one of the other options we're looking at. If that grant goes well, that's something that we could maybe try to possibly expand, but it would be done in the health curriculum.
Madam Chair, if I may ask just a question. I know I've had high schoolers that were involved in the tattoo program. Is that something that's still happening? The Columbia leadership team, and I'm sure it didn't happen this year, but in years past, they were going into elementary schools and doing presentations on the harms of tobacco and alcohol and I think vaping. And so I know there was an education piece that was happening in some of the elementary schools that way. Do we know if that's something that is continuing to happen or? No, nice. Okay. This year, no. Right, okay. I assume no this year, but I'm just thinking if we're looking for some sort of education piece, I know the leadership kids, at least at Columbia, just because I had children that were involved, were going into schools and they had a whole program they did. And I mean, that would be helpful. At least somewhere is learning that it's harmful to your body. So.
It's also incorporated within our elementary health, like our counselors do units around some of that as well. Cool. Yeah.
Any other questions? I really just was curious. Thank you. I was curious on the bullying part, kind of the definition of a bullying incident, what constitutes an incident and how, just even for parents that are listening, how that information is conveyed.
It's been a while since I prepared the report and I put back.
Sorry.
No, that please don't. On the very last page of your packet, it actually gives you the definition.
Nice.
Bullying is defined as.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I was like, I haven't read that in a bit. I don't have it memorized here. I can read that. I appreciate that. You're welcome.
May I ask a follow-up question on that? So is bullying, just for a definition, I see this is good. Is it only if it's reported by a student or parent, or is this like the teacher sees name calling and says this counts as a bullying act, or does it need to be reported as someone has been hurt by it in order, does that make sense?
It does make sense. So again, just name calling all by itself in isolation would not be an act of bullying, right? It has to be repeated, right? Okay. So if they're targeting a student and repeatedly using unkind words, because there's moments where kids are unkind, right? They say things they shouldn't. That doesn't necessarily meet that definition of bullying. Okay. You really have to look at that pattern of behavior, repeated intentional harmful acts. And so we do work carefully on that because we don't want to call everything an incident of bullying. Right. Sometimes kids can be unkind and be mean, right? That's an opportunity for us to reteach and help them make better choices in the future. We're looking at those incidents where it's that repeated.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. And good to see you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Trustee Westfall.
No questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have our lease resolution for the Apple products.
Mr. Krebs, are you?
Yep, these are.
Mr. Krebs is here to talk us through that.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for your time. So it is time to refresh our phase 1, 2 devices, the iPads and the MacBooks. And so that's what this is about. We are looking at, this is a will not exceed because I just matched number for number, but this is not the amount we will be ordering. It will be to match our enrollment projections.
Can you just say that one more time for me?
So we went off device, we're matching device for device, so that's why the number is higher than we will be ordering. So we're just asking for permission, but it will not exceed this number.
Which is 952 and 952,000.
Perfect.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With an overall of 2.086.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ready to write the resolution, because this is a multi-year contract, and so it's important that we write a resolution to make sure that future boards have options.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Trustee Westfall.
Madam Chair, Cody, these are replacing the devices in those first elementary schools in Nampa personalized learning. That's correct?
Correct.
So it's not all elementaries?
No, it's just phase 1 and 2. So it's the first 7 schools.
7 schools. And this is supported with our supplemental levy, or is this from other funds?
This is supplemental levy and state tech. And I may be wrong on the number of schools too, because we're including phase 2. I'd have to get that total.
And they're like 5 years old?
Yes, they're over 4 years old. The iPads don't support the new testing platforms. It doesn't support ISAT, or sorry, not ISAT, but
iStations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Westfall, this is part of our regular rotation. We don't really ever want to buy all of the iPads at once. We want to have a continual 25% of our fleet or 20% of our fleet that we're refreshing and renewing.
Chairman Simpson, being that we didn't see this a couple weeks ago in our discussion before we took action on it, can I ask what the date is that we need to have this signed by, and wonder if maybe we could table it to the next meeting to have more time to look into that?
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
So the issue that we had is timing. And that is, we are trying to get at least the MacBooks here before our teachers leave for summer, because we have to collect the other MacBooks back when we give them their new ones and send them to the leasing company this summer. And my team needs time to get that done. So if we push it, it could, it'll make the date we receive them later, which could make it hard.
This is, if you remember, this was on our work session agenda, and Peter spoke to us about the timeline, and that it just wasn't going to be there in time for that meeting.
I haven't been here last week. So.
Yeah.
Oh, he was saying it wouldn't be here and that we needed to look for it and know that.
Yeah.
I just had a week out of town, so
yep,
that's me. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna have to defer to my trustees.
I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the lease resolution for the Apple products as stated in the resolution.
I'll second that. So it was moved by Trustee Kipp and seconded by Chairman Simpson. Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
And I'm just gonna abstain because I didn't have opportunity, and I apologize for that.
Thank you. Excellent. So next is the Skyview Roof Bid Award.
Mr. Jers.
Yep. So we, at the last work session, talked to you about what was coming. This is the results of that process and when we opened it. We've given you an example of the motion that we did, hope to see, and a couple options there if you wanted to consider a couple of other things that we want to do. That's kind of at your discretion from that. But I'll be glad to answer any of your questions about it. We also have Mr. Hildebrand on the session with us to answer any really good nitty-gritty ones.
Any questions, or I would entertain a motion?
So this included the alternative of number one alternative. Is that correct?
That is
Which
correct.
was upgrade from the 20-year to the 30-year warranty, and the size of the membrane, the thickness of the membrane being applied.
Yes, our recommendation is that small increase is worth the additional 10 years of serviceability of the roof.
Very good. Move to approve the bid.
I'll second. It was moved by trustee Kip, seconded by Chairman Simpson. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just wanted to compliment Mr. Jers on his meeting materials for this. It was a great summary of the key points, and the materials were very helpful.
Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Approved.
Okay, that's me.
Don't jinx it. So the updated classified salary schedules.
All right, so during the work session, we presented some information, kind of comparing where we were compared to districts around us and where we were compared to providing a livable wage. We sat down again with Mr. Dewey. The initial cost, if we would make this transition starting April 12th or 13th, I'm sorry, the pay time there, would be just shy of 150,000. We believe that we have that in carryover, which means we'd have to be a little more thoughtful in budgeting next year. And to implement this full-time next year, we would have to go through our position control. And we say, hey, if you have 500 kids in a building, you get this type of position. If you have 200, you get this type of position. And currently we have a lot of room to manage that. I gave the estimate in here that if it was equally distributed across all of our sites, that might mean a decrease of one per site. It's likely not to be equally distributed. There might be places that we can save here and then add here. And so our recommendation is to support our classified employees by moving our minimum wage to $11 per hour. Starting in the April pay period. The exception to this would be our temporary summer only employees. We hire students to do some really basic things. If the departments would choose to do that, certainly. But our temporary summer only employees, we would exclude from this and move our classified salary schedules to start at 11 instead of $9.05.
Any?
Yeah, I'm sure. I just have a question,
Yes.
just for clarification. Do you have an idea of how many positions would need to be done away with in order to make this happen?
So it's about 22. So just shy of 1 per site.
Are there currently 22 positions that are vacant?
All in nutrition services. No, we do have some in nutrition services. We do have some paraprofessional positions that are not open. I think, again, this is a conversation where we have opportunity to make some of these adjustments through attrition or looking at how we structure things here at the district office. There are a lot of places that we believe we can make these. So the follow on that motion is that you would direct us to make it happen and show you how we've done that.
So I'm understanding, and the question was, are there 22 positions vacant? There are some vacant, and then there are some that you may need to shuffle around to make this happen next year.
Correct.
May I ask another follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Are there any positions that would need to be eliminated before the end of this school year?
No.
Okay, so everyone currently, okay.
we can do this with carryover expenses, is what.
Correct.
Yeah.
To finish out this year.
Yeah. You said that.
Sure. No,
I
it's a
think,
lot of information.
I think the only thing I'm wrestling with in my head is right when we always do something that has that continuous and it compounds and adds on a burden to the district finances in continuation. How I always go back to question number one is how is this helping kids? So I'm wrestling with both of those two.
So the second one was how it's helping with kids. What was the first one? I'm sorry.
Oh, when we burden the district with continuing financial in perpetuity as it continues.
So I think we've shared pretty consistently the areas that we've really struggled this year, and they are the areas that are in these low minimum wage areas. We can't find qualified candidates. When we do find candidates, they don't stay with us very long because, well, I just saw I could go work at, what's the Chinese place with the bowls and the Panda Express for $15 an hour. And so when our folks can make that choice instead of coming here to work for us, so it helps kids because we can then staff appropriately. We can attract quality candidates and make sure they're in the classroom and that we're not, substitutes are part of that. All of this situation that we're dealing with right now often deals with an inability of these salaries to allow somebody to care for their family appropriately. So I would make the statement that if we are able to fill those positions, and we have many great qualified candidates who remind us every year that they're not going to be able to stay with us because they can't support their family. One of the most important ones, when we look at what take-home pay, and when we say take-home pay, that $252, we do have several nutrition services folks who, when they get their paycheck, if they are the breadwinner in their family and are using insurance to cover their family, have $252 that then we take state and federal taxes out of. So they really are working for us for that and don't have a lot of cash flow. So we think that we have a plan in order to make sure in the continuity that we have a way to address it, both in the short term for this year and then in the longer term in an ongoing. Some of it is the 2% that comes from the state that was approved in JPAC on Friday. Will flow through and will help us with that amount.
Yeah, I think just, how it helps kids, creating predictability and consistency with these positions. I think that if it doesn't directly help kids, I think it indirectly helps kids. But I got to tell you, $11 an hour. I mean, this is not the end all. We got to keep going. I mean, we're talking about people supporting their families, and that is not a livable wage when you can go to Target and start at $15 an hour or wherever. So I'm fully in favor of this, and I'll make a motion in a minute. But I think we need to keep moving. I think we need to keep moving this forward.
That's kind of where I am as well. I think we need to get the ball rolling. I mean, I feel like we're late to the dance anyway. And if this so passes by this board, it would be a good step in the right direction. And then it would prioritize that this board has set this as a priority. So the budget is going to reflect that, right? I mean, which we've and so that's, I mean, it's obviously up to us, but I think too, yeah, just making steps. Because I don't know that $11 an hour is really a livable wage either, but
it's a move from 9.
But it's a move, yeah. Yeah, there are no other comments or questions. I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the updated classified salary schedules.
Second. It's been moved by trustee Kit and seconded by trustee Keller to approve the classified salary schedule to $11 per hour. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Chair.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, trustee Westphal.
Yeah, I was going to vote in favor. I was wondering, because, as trustees, and maybe you've seen these come through your email boxes, folks who are looking at maybe contracting some of these services for us, like the nutrition services comes to mind. And it just putting that out there, if we continue to not be able to compete, we may have to look at some alternate hiring models. So that's it.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. It's approved unanimously. And that, I just wanted to make sure, so that would be on within the April, the next pay period in April.
Assuming everything goes well. So we would make it there. And our hope is it would be reflected in the paycheck. We are still working with Tyler Technologies, which generates our payroll to make sure that these type of changes can be made. Mr. Dewey assures me that it will go well. So that's our hope.
Think it so, Mr. D.
Thank you. And then I thought I heard an update
on
like in the future. So I mean, this won't be our first and like only hearing of this as we plan for the budget and everything for next year.
Yes, you'll see this. Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Perfect.
So next one, the quarantine revision.
Yes, and our apologies in Southwest as well. They're not able to be here with us. They experienced a lovely technology glitch on Thursday and Friday of last week and weren't able to get us the materials that we were asking for. We did share that with you later this afternoon. And it's also now in the trustees' comments for those who are out in the public. We did want to share with you, I don't think that this PowerPoint actually does that. So I'm going to share with you in the board docs in the administrative content where we are thinking. We spent a lot of time chatting with Southwest District Health, and they actually have gone a little bit back and forth about whether they can supply us or whether they can't supply us, and they're a little uncertain. The good news is that Caldwell, Valley View, and Nampa are pursuing testing options for the staff. And so all of a sudden they're a little bit worried about a test that costs over $100 and how far it will go. But you can see the tentative language that Amanda Berry, who now is our liaison, has given us. Our recommendation actually would be in two parts. One of them is for staff. We would like to change our quarantine guidelines. We're experiencing a lot of success with staff, particularly in the monitoring and the mitigation strategies. So at day 10, after they come back, actually on days 11, 12, 13, and 14, we have really strong compliance with them monitoring their own symptoms, and we're able to control where they eat, how, where they're close to people, and etc. And we believe that we can carry that off without additional burden for our nursing staff and moving to the 7+7. Remembering that the 7+7 is a CDC guideline as well, that after day 5, if you're tested with a PCR test, both the vault test and the regular PCR test that Southwest have qualify for the asymptomatic person. If that comes back a negative, they can return on day 8, and then they monitor and they mitigate during that time with the plans that we have in place. We have a couple of other stipulations there. Our staff, as they become vaccinated, CDC recommends that if they are fully vaccinated in that round plus 2 weeks, that they would no longer have to quarantine if they stay asymptomatic, and that they would continue to require masks. A lot of times it's courtesy, and a lot of times it's modeling for our students. And CDC still really says that we should, even after we're vaccinated, wear masks for a little while. So those are the changes we'd like to see with our adults and our staff. If our staff aren't comfortable testing, then we would move them back to the 10+4. So they would be out for 10 days and then on days 11, because we do have some members of our staff who may choose not to do that. For our students, we have considered whether or not our nurses could carry out the variety of things that could be happening. So we looked at Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, and could we keep them in the classroom? To what extent could we keep them in the classroom? And then if they became symptomatic, then how does that work? If you remember and look at our medical records from tonight that Anita has provided with us, we would have had, well, the good news is we only had 27 people quarantined during the week of March 8th. So that's really great. 18 of those would have been quarantined at home because their close contact was off of our campus. Remembering that Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, if you're in the classroom and you are both masked, and there's an adult in that room that takes the responsibility to confirm that, then they could stay in there. We did look at the 7 days. Southwest clearly not in the note that you gave us, but shared that the deep nasal opportunity with the PCR test is probably not really comfortable for a younger child and may not be worth the trauma that they might experience. And then if we went with the vault test, it is a little bit complicated for a younger person to go through. So when we thought about it and when we talked with our nurses, we would really encourage us to stay for our students with the 10+4 until the April board meeting. After we come back on the 29th, that gives us 3 weeks of data to really look at what's happening. If we stay at these low numbers like this, it seems like it would make sense that we would move to the Department of Health and Welfare type of thing. We just don't know because nobody's really brought back all of their high school students following these new guidelines. So our recommendation for students is that we would stay with the 10+4, that we'd monitor for 3 weeks, and that we'd bring you a recommendation at the April board meeting, the regular April board meeting.
Any questions, discussions?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
appreciate all the work that's gone in. I know I have pushed you guys hard on this, and so I have definitely appreciate what you've done. I got frustrated this weekend when I was looking at Vault and it said this is for men, women, and children, and Southwest District Health said no children, you know. So anyway, I appreciate you looking into that, and I definitely can see the need for compromise, and I'm grateful that the numbers are so low, and I don't know if it's worth pushing for something that is going to affect so little, you know, the amount of people. And I do see I see the wisdom in let's bring everyone back in the building, see how things are going, take a look at that and move on from there. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys putting the work into doing that.
And Betsy, it is worth those 4, you know, it is worth the 4 once we know we can do it safely and consistently, you know.
Yeah, I think I just got frustrated because I felt like, man, we can be creative, you know, we just don't have to say no, you know. But I definitely see the wisdom in getting numbers once everyone is back together in the building and, you know.
Old baby steps thing.
Yeah.
You said there wasn't any high schools that are doing the Idaho Health and Welfare and all back in the building. Is CUNA?
CUNA does not yet have all of their high schools back in.
They're coming back after spring break.
And we should check with Trustee Westfall to confirm when they're coming back.
Because I think they have the Idaho.
So CUNA is following that, but they do not have all of their high school students back on
I think chapter
campus.
break, but Trustee Westfall would not.
Trustee Westfall, is that correct? That's our understanding.
Their high school students will return full-time April 5th. I do think Emmett High School is following something less restrictive than the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare.
Yes, it's not following Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, but it is a variation. You are correct.
I think for me, as I wrestled with the quarantine, I heard a lot in the discussion that the part of the reason why Idaho Health and Welfare came up with that was to try to have more mask wearing. They wanted to promote that. And they thought, well, if we do that right, then we wouldn't need to quarantine. And I struggled with this decision, and then the next one coming up, they're kind of tied together because then we have our reopening plan coming up. And I felt like, is there a trade-off here between quarantine and masks? I think my first goal is to have kids and staff present in the classrooms as much as possible, and whatever we can do to safely keep them there and alleviate any burdens is where my head was first. I'm so thankful that the numbers are down. But you know, even 23 kids missing 2 weeks, especially in this last trimester, is a big deal for them. That's a lot of time to miss. But then I think, well, if we don't feel amicable to going that route and reducing quarantine, then potentially we're in green. And if we're still going to follow those guidelines, then we could have masks be optional for folks for that comfort level while we're in the green, which were things that we've talked about as well. And as I was hearing all the medical folks talk about one or the other, I haven't heard from parents. So trustees and superintendent, I'd really like to know if you guys have heard a sense from parents or staff one way or the other on those, and what's valued as a little bit more important. It would be at the quarantine times or the optional mask wearing.
I've never heard it as a either or. I've heard it as a both and the folks that I've heard from have said, please don't change anything. You know, like keep masks, get in the classroom 4 days a week, because that's going to be a change. You know, get in the classroom 4 days a week, and then let's see. But I think just what you said, let's get everyone into the classroom and do that without burdens. Without burdens is not changing the quarantine. It's more burdensome to change the quarantine and put more on the teachers to, you know, were they wearing masks? Were they both, you know, those kind of things. I think staying with the quarantine as we are, staying with masks, let's get to April 19th. And then I think it would be, we would have data to back up, you know, any decision we made then. Because right now, we haven't had them in the building, you know, 4 days a week. So to me, it's baby steps. Let's get them in there.
Kim, the few emails, and I'm using few because it's just a handful, have been parents who were frustrated with the long quarantine, feeling like, and I brought this up at the last meeting, feeling like my child was in class, this is mostly at the secondary level, wearing a mask, and yet now they have to be home for 14 days and frustrated with that. So that's the voices that I've heard, which is why I've been trying to, you know, kind of pick at that one a little bit.
I know, I mean, I know people don't like to talk about this, but I think what we have seen is that masks are working, right? I mean, based on where we are currently, based on just, I mean, I think how well our district has been doing through this process and trying to minimize and spread things. Well, we have different variants and different strands of this virus coming through where we're seeing kids are impacted by this. So I would really hate to have the conversation of getting away from masks, especially when we don't know, because I would love to be able to say, well, we didn't have any new strands of this virus spread because we did a good job. Our kids wore their masks, our employees wore their masks, and we did a really good job to take care of each other and protect each other from those things. Because you know, we don't know. And I think same thing, like, yes, I'm optimistic and just as excited by all the news and the things that we're seeing, which are amazing. I worry kind of along that same line of too much too soon, like going all back and then changing other things at the same time. But again, I do like the 3 weeks, right? So if we get kids back in 4 days, 3 weeks, and we get to see what does that look like and how are they doing? And if numbers continue to trend down or even stay the same, I mean, I would be super happy with that if we could stay in the gray/green area with all kids back in, right? And then revisit and analyze where we're at with that data.
So maybe I hear you say masks work, and I think that's where I'm pushing from the other side is if masks work, then why are we quarantining kids for wearing masks? You know, and I get it. So I think we'll see in that 3 weeks, but I think that's my frustration is if people are obeying the rules and doing everything they're being told to do, if we really believe that masks and distancing work, then why is someone being punished because someone 6 feet away in a mask was positive if we think they work? You know what I mean? That's my line of thinking, but I'm not pushing that right now, but I'm just saying.
Totally. And the complication is that when we get everyone back in the building, the 6 feet is probably not going to be happening.
Yeah. The good news was the CDC today. Did you see the Dr.
I did.
3 feet?
Okay.
It's not official.
Yeah.
That's what's coming up the pipe. So I
And
was
that's,
like, oh, good.
and that's great. But again, just another reality of the logistics that, you know, the physical, get everyone there, not half, then even that piece of the being careful is less possible or probably not possible. So all the reasons to where keep masks on, let's get 3 weeks down the road and see how we're doing. These new variants do, I have concern, you know, I mean, because they say they're more contagious. They say that they affect kids more. That's what I've read at this point. All that's new information, you know, coming, that could change tomorrow, but that's the latest. And it's here, it's in the state.
Yeah, Trustee Westfall.
You know, I went to our policies, you know, because we've had a lot of information on this. And the policy that covers this is 3525. And, you know, this board, since I've been on it, has considered this policy before. And it says that we'll follow health and welfare guidelines. And so then I was looking, because there was some more dialogue, and Mandy, you and Kim might remember this because Trustee Stoffer was on the board. And we were talking about it in the context of measles. And so I've been kind of thinking bigger picture. As I looked through the minutes, we had delegated the responsibility to the superintendent on quarantining students. Then there was a question from Trustee Stoffer about how long that would be. And a commitment from the administration to bring back the policy reflecting the changes. And that just didn't happen. So as we look at this quarantining and then other times we may quarantine, I was hopeful that maybe we could revisit this policy and have more comprehensive procedures, because how do we deal with other non-vaccinated students with a goal of keeping kids in school more? I like the guidelines from the Department of Health and Welfare because they recognize that masks were effective and it was an incentive to encourage folks who weren't as forward thinking as we were in requiring masks to require them. So those were my thoughts on this item after reviewing the work session recording and then going back and looking what our policies said.
That's a question. Allison, you talked about 3525?
No, 3520.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready for a motion? Sure. I move that we accept the Idaho Health and Welfare quarantine guidelines for inside our buildings, and that when there are close contacts outside of our buildings, that both staff and students are able to test on or after day 5.
I'll second it.
I think my reasoning for the motion was really this conversation. So thank you, everybody, because that was what was difficult in my mind to kind of wrap around where we are in our community and in our guidelines and what we've been hearing and taking everything into account. And I think if the goal is keeping kids in school and feeling comfortable with what we're hearing from folks, And what we're doing in schools is working, and we're gonna stay masked and continue to distance as best we can, new things maybe to 3 feet. Those all sound positive, and not reckless and by any means. And as far as out of our building contacts that will happen, I feel that students are equal to staff and should have the same opportunities. And so if we're comfortable doing that with staff, to give the option for students to be able to partake in that same thing. And I understand your concern that not everybody may be able to get there and get the right
They won't.
one, but for those that it can help, that it's beneficial. And if it helps 1 or 2, then that's still positive. That's my thought process.
Can I just ask on the, because our staff is meeting at 5 days a test, so you like.
I'm just reading straight off the exactly what's in our packet. It says that they're test on or after day 5.
7 + 7.
But then it's, just
Oh,
keeping.
because
it
they get
exactly
the
that.
results back on. day
And we're
7,
able to
right?
come back on the 7th day.
Or on the 8th day.
Or, sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
So exactly what's in our packet is, I'm just saying the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare for in the building, and the 7/7 that's outlined in our packet for staff and students for contacts outside of our buildings.
And so the health and welfare is where like an adult has to verify that these people in the same room, these kiddos have been wearing a mask.
Instructional setting, and there has to be an adult that verifies that students were masked 100% of the time.
And so then what happens when our staff say, I don't think that kid had a mask? What,
I'm hopeful that we have good people in our buildings that.
Here, I'm gonna tell you.
In this case, I'm gonna give the biggest amount of opportunity for positivity that I can, that things will go well, and just give the maximum benefit to try.
I'm asking,
It doesn't.
right, I'm just asking as a teacher, because there are gonna be moments, especially with all kids back in, where I know that I wouldn't be able to say like, yes, that kid and this kid had their masks on the entire period. I know that they did in my classroom. Does that make sense? Like, I'm just saying that like, if that's what we want educators to be managing, then we're gonna go back to emails that we received at the beginning of the year where parents were upset that it was about, can you keep your mask on? Can you keep your mask on? And then that's gonna be the main.
And that's why I asked the first question. The first question was, do we want to talk about quarantines or do we want to talk about mask optional? Because of that exactly that. I feel that it's kind of this one or the other. So are we going to give the grace to wearing masks and give everybody their liberties to choose what their comfort level is in there, and then quarantine if there's a close contact, just because we gave them that liberty and that option to choose, so therefore you're quarantined? Or do we have that conversation that we just had that says, we're supposed to be following the rules, this is what we're supposed to be having in there, and if you're doing those things, it works, and therefore you wouldn't have the strict quarantine guidelines?
I don't think it's an either or, and being in the schools, the kids aren't wearing their masks all the time. That's the problem.
And yet the numbers are still going down.
And that's good. Let's keep it.
I know.
Let's keep them going down. Let's not tempt fate. We have 3 weeks. Why change it now? It's not equitable. It privileges kids who can make that trip. That's not right. It's not right.
No, I disagree. I feel like I know that I just don't think you can close the door and say if one kid doesn't get it, nobody gets it. I know it doesn't seem fair, but we're talking how many kids? 10 kids last week that were positive, and how many? 27?
Four or five, I think, was the number that were in.
I'm sorry, I had looked at it and now I got the number. Yeah, but off the top of your head.
We had 27 quarantines. That included.
But only 9 of those were because of the school
Yes, well, 18 of them were outside of the school. Yeah.
Mandy, do math, that's 27 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it nine?
Yeah, I was like, look at that number. And the week before that,
You did it right.
yeah, we had 46 quarantined, 30 of them. So you're running in the 70% that is going to still be quarantined. And in the motion that's on the floor, what would happen if a teacher couldn't say they were masked? Then we would implement the 7+7 if parents were willing to follow the monitoring and mitigation. So the answer to your question with the current, I do want to remind you that we have letters from Southwest District who says it's not 2 mitigation strategies. We have masking, we have distancing, we have washing hands, we're having staying home when you're sick. It's the whole. And when we come back, we'll have basically eliminated physical distancing on our secondary campus. So I would disagree that that they're connected together in any way. And CDC would say, even at this point, that you should remain masked. And particularly when physical distancing isn't something that could be maintained consistently. Anita, would you have anything to add to that? Our expert here.
Let's also add that we have to make sure that we get the right test in the right days of like, so it has to be 5 days after your last close contact with that person, right? No symptoms, and it has to be a PCR test. And I just say that because going and getting just a quick rapid test wouldn't allow you to come back to campus. And I just want us to really think about the communication that could cause, right? Because people will be frustrated they got a negative test, but it doesn't meet the criteria the CDC is laid out for returning for that 7 to 7. And then the one caution I have about vault testing is the results are sent to the families only. So it's no longer a Southwest District Health managed piece, and we have to make sure that they get those results back to the nurse. And there is a chance if it's positive, that kid will be out even longer, just so that you know, because it's 10 days from the date the specimen was taken that they were then out with a positive result for asymptomatic. So just keeping all those variables in mind.
I'm concerned by doing this, it'll actually have the opposite effect that I'm hearing you hope that it has. And that concerns me. Concerns me for the safety of our kids and our staff. And I think it puts an additional burden on teachers who are coming back 4 days a week to then be the mask cops. You know, when someone says, were they wearing masks, the pressure that they're gonna potentially have, you know, to say, yeah, they were wearing masks, you know, that's a lot. It's a lot to come back to. And that's why I will be voting against the motion.
So, I mean, obviously, this body is going to make a decision, right? Like, that's how it works. I bring those things up mainly, one, because I want us to be thinking forward. So if this does pass, I feel like we need to stand behind our staff and make sure, like, when parents are complaining that, like, you know, this staff member said my kid wasn't wearing a mask, like, we have to believe it, right? And we have to own it. And so,
well, they can't confirm that they were even, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things, but I get it. If parents aren't in the room and you've got a teacher saying one thing and a kid saying another thing, right? So at this point, right, if this passes, we are believing, and the health and welfare is saying it's that adult's opinion and observation that matters, not the students. So I just want to be clear that that's, if this does pass, like, that's the direction that this body would also be holding, and we need to take some ownership of that, right? Like, and it is a different kind of ownership, I feel like, than other things that we as a board vote on and do.
I can appreciate that. And I can say, yeah, I mean, we do have to hold that up in the same manner that we currently hold up our current practice, which is if any student says, I am positive and I was around these people, that we're currently backing up and saying, you still have to quarantine your student because this student said they were in proximity to you. So I agree with you that is what that says in the same manner that we're doing it now with children.
A question, because it's been said that our students aren't wearing their masks now.
Oh, I just said they don't all wear their masks, that's all. I said that last time when we were talking about this, that just in my experience in Food Line and Walking Centennial, you know, it's kids having their masks off their nose, because it has to be over their mouth and nose, you know, they have it off their nose. That's not an unusual sight. I mean, Mandy's in the classroom, she could tell you.
Do we have any sort of surveys or anything asking teachers and building administrators if masks are, if there is good compliance with masks? I mean, I know it all just, like we talked about this last time, or maybe I.
So we've all been in buildings. You want to hear what I've seen? You want to start?
Yeah. I would agree with Trustee Kipps. When we're in the lunchroom and we're in line or in the hallway, sometimes they're down. Teachers do a really good job of doing their best to try to remind them to put them up.
Yeah.
The reality is they're not up all the time, and we have some kids in our buildings who struggle. And so I can't say that they're compliant, like that they're on even 90% of the time, right? We do take organized mask breaks, but we've been very specific about what that looks like. And that's just at the elementary. And we do use face shields during our phonics time. So I do think during our looser times, it's easier for them to fall down on the playground and in the hallways. And when we're going to the bathroom, we do bathroom breaks and lunchrooms.
And teachers are doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing.
It is a
You know, kids don't want to have them on. I get that.
And to be clear, in all of those situations, Idaho Department of Health and Welfare guidelines aren't there.
Right.
Because it's in an instructional setting.
Yeah.
And lunchroom, playground, bathroom break.
Yeah.
Isn't covered there.
In instruction, I see that.
It sounds like then our staff has a good grasp of who is and isn't wearing masks. I just go to Trustee Kipps' argument about an additional burden. We heard it described well about they recognize when there are mask breaks. Who's a chronic non-mask follower.
Trustee Westfall, that's just to clarify, I'm speaking only for elementary classrooms. I am not speaking for secondary classrooms. And so I would have to have Mr. LeBou or someone else speak to that. That's just in our elementary classrooms where with our littles.
And at the secondary level, I would say we're experiencing fatigue, mask fatigue on the part of students. Reports of staff struggling to maintain that continuity and consistency as well, but not confirmed. These are outside sources because I've heard from parents that are like, this teacher isn't being consistent, you know, and this is the one we see all the time. Like, I mean, it's just get your mask on.
Which is mask down below nose for those who can't see him.
Yeah. So, and then athletics, I was over at Nampa High. Kids coming in to get their jerseys, one kid with a mask, most don't. I mean, it's just hard with athletics going back and forth. So it's inconsistent.
Thank you. It sounds like then the original purpose of this would stand in this place too. We've hit a time where there's mask fatigue. We're entering a time where more kids will be in the building and we really need them to wear their masks. This would perhaps complement the effort.
So it sounds like we're ready for a vote. Okay. So sorry, I'm not sure if I even said, but Trustee Ross has a motion on the floor. It was seconded by Trustee Keller. And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Can I just qualify, make sure we have the motion clear so that we know what we're implementing?
To accept the Idaho Health and Welfare quarantine revision when close contact is within the building and allowing both staff and students to test after the 5th day.
When there's a close contact out of our buildings.
It wasn't in the motion.
It's according to what's written in our quarantine revision for the 7 and 7.
And can we implement this after we come back on spring break? I don't think that we can get procedures and processes in place before then.
So we probably, I can make it, how do we want to do that?
Well,
You said you were already
Effective
passed
March 29th.
motion. But
Yeah, we
didn't
did,
say
it
that in
wasn't part of the
vote, so-
motion, so I think.
I'm just trying to set an expectation, and our nurses, I just need them not to work over spring break.
So when this was put into anything that we voted on today, what was the anticipation that anything that we did today would take effect? Was there anything in the document that
I didn't.
stated?
Do we, I mean,
I'm comfortable with March 29th.
I'm not seeing anyone.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
I'm
we had,
looking through the document again for any dates. I don't see any.
Is that enough
I'm-
information for?
Sure,
Okay.
I wanted to
I'm okay
not
with
have
it too.
expectations that were out there that we couldn't fulfill.
Excellent. Okay. Next one, possible action item, the 2020-2021 school year reopening plan.
We have been receiving comments from staff. Mostly staff, have talked with some students, have talked with some parents as well. We've just been dealing with so much change. Mr. Main also mentioned a quick survey. We are seeing a lot of kids on Wednesday right now, face-to-face, because we've identified them with really significant gaps, and they're coming in and we're filling those gaps, and we're feeling pretty positive about the opportunity. We're running buses at the secondary level. We'll work to implement that at the elementary if Wednesdays continue to be a day that's there. Many of our staff are jumping on, doing one-on-one virtually. What we're learning in PLCs and analyzing the data so that we know who to identify in order to fill the gap, a pretty significant time. And we are using Wednesday a lot to catch up with students. Again, when we look at this, the 70% who are going to be in some type of quarantine and not there, making sure that they have access to their curriculum and following up on them. So our recommendation would be to give us a little consistency after we come back on the 29th, even though we may be in the gray. So Trustee Westfall is right. Nampa, not Nampa School District, but those cases within the Nampa School District boundary went to gray on the 13th. Why that date is compared to the rest, I don't know. And we in Nampa have slipped below that thresh mark of 1. We're at a 0.954. So we have slipped below that. So it could be that Southwest would move us to a gray in their category. But we're asking that you would give us the opportunity to keep a reasoned schedule for those 3 weeks till the board meets again in April, so that people have a clear expectation of what to expect again, so that we can monitor and make sure that we can continue to stay on top of contact tracing, and kids are healthy, teachers are healthy, etc.
Madam Chair, so if things stay the same, we don't necessarily need to entertain a motion tonight. Is that correct? Do you need a motion tonight? Because that's currently this plan. So we would only need a motion if we were looking to change it.
In a previous motion, we had asked the board to keep us in yellow and to think about going after on the 29th, bringing 4 days.
Okay.
And we did add the statement, and if we go to gray or green, then we would, I think the words were, make a timely move.
Yeah.
We didn't set a clear expectation, so if your interpretation is that it gives us the ability to do that, that's fine. But we wanted to be upfront. So
I'll make a motion that we stay in the 4+1 instructional model after spring break for the 3 weeks following spring break to the next board meeting.
Till April 19th.
Yeah, what did I say?
No.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it was moved by trustee Kip and seconded by trustee Keller. Any discussion, questions, comments?
Madam Chair, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Trustee Westfall.
Oh, Superintendent, what conditions would need to be in place when we meet in April? Because I think you shared with us in an email that you were looking at what 5 days might look like, that kids could come every day. What kind of conditions should our parents be looking for that might get their kids back in school every day?
I think we have to continue in the gray or green. I think we have to have confidence that we're able to contact trace and we aren't spreading on our campus. Ms. Christensen, would you add anything else to that? Those would be, I think, key and important.
Trustee
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on our last meeting when Trustee Keller asked, if we were optimistic and got to green before spring break when we were doing our discussion about what is school going to look like when we come back from spring break. And I remember the statement was made, well, if we go to green, we go to 5 days a week, and it was even if we're at spring break. So I'm comfortable with keeping this for right now. We have heard from folks that appreciate that schedule. We just made a big change tonight to quarantining on things. And so I think my question is, it's just the change to the 1 day on the Wednesday. And we've been granting in all our other motions 2 weeks grace. So if say we come back April 19th, typically when we revisit it again, we'll say, okay, and then we'll make this effective if we decide to move to the green category 2 weeks from now. If we come back April 19th, do you still feel that you would need that 2 weeks to make any changes?
I don't know that we've talked about that. One of the things we have to look at is where busing is. So it's a Monday. I think if we had a week's time to implement on that following Monday, we could follow our commitments up for that Wednesday with kids who are expecting that and then be able to implement starting that next week.
Okay.
So that would be as early as, I'm just looking at a calendar to see.
Be the 26th.
Which gives us exactly 1 month to the last day of school.
You're where I was.
The last day of
looking
school is
at.
the 27th.
Correct. That's helpful. Okay. Thank you.
Seeing no more comments, questions, discussions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, that passes. Next is the monthly budget status report.
So Mr. Dewey is here. If you do have questions, our plan today was to go over a little more in depth Fund 290, which is our nutrition services. So I don't know, Mr. Jers, if you could pull up that and then flip to 290. This is just to keep you appraised that our anticipation of revenue in Fund 290 hasn't met its expectations, and thus our correction back in the fall. And we now think that we are, our income has started to come back up, but just wanted to show you that reflected in Fund Code 290. It's in there somewhere.
I don't want to go too fast.
He's scrolling through right now some of our title.
It's going to be about 25.
As he
Someone
slowly,
would be past it, not to go back.
23.
well,
It's on
it
page
is
23.
numerical order. There we go. So, and the pictures are kind of right there in the way where you really can't see, but I think you can see that we've really only brought in 22% of the revenue that we anticipated. We should be somewhere in the 67% because we're about 2/3 the way through our fiscal year. But just wanted to, when you're looking at those numbers, wanted to try to help you make sense of some of those things that were there. We do anticipate that we will close some of that gap. Certainly as we move forward, particularly when we're bringing back all of our students on campuses and are serving more students per day. In the other funds that Mr. Jers scrolled through in our title funds, wanted you to recognize that those funds neither, well, in its income are not close to the 67% that they should be. Those are generally 1 to 2 months in arrear. We get to spend that money first, and then we get to draw it down. So it's very common for our expenses in those funds to have a higher percentage of expenditure than what it shows in the revenue. And it will eventually catch up, but it is one of those areas where we get to manage cash flow, spend first, and then collect later. So that is your fund.
Budget lesson.
Yeah, the little budget lesson for the evening. And if you have other questions there, Mr. Dewey is here to answer them. Any other questions, Mr. Dewey?
Maybe I just would ask, what do you have a sense, Mr. Dewey, what our, or is it just, do we just not know yet how much that gap will close between where we are and what we're expecting? With Fund 290.
Are you talking with Fund 290?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so I've actually worked with Peter, Mr. Jers, and the staff over there at Nutrition Services, and the revenues. A lot of the costs that we have in the system, we feel are pretty good. Our inventory levels are good, so we're actually going to start spending that down. So our cash basis is going to be okay. But revenues look to be catching up quickly. And if they continue at the pace that we are going, we should be fine. We're still going to be break even. The fund itself is going to show a loss next year, but that's basically just fund spending down fund balance that we had available for moments like this.
Thank you.
Let me ask you questions for clarification. Yes. So we are reimbursed based on the number of students who are actually taking the lunch. So it will be helpful when all students are back and maybe more students are taking lunch. Do I understand that correctly?
You are correct.
Okay.
Yes, and the one thing to keep in mind is our fixed costs here are generally our employees' wages and all that kind of stuff. The more lunches you can serve, the cost per plate goes down. Obviously, food costs are relative based on how many you sell, but the real big part here, which is the hardest part, is when you have a lot of staff. If you're not selling a lot of lunches, the cost per plate goes up significantly.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, Trustee Westfall?
She's napping. She's napping.
I am not napping. I gave the thumbs up that I was okay.
I knew you weren't.
Perfect. Okay. So seeing none, we're moving to our policy review.
Do you mind if we take a recess? Would that be possible?
Yeah, how, 3 minutes?
Yeah.
3-minute recess.
Yay.
Sorry.
We are at 3 minutes. You guys did awesome. Great work. So first policy is a second reading on policy 8105, which is our extracurricular transportation policy.
Yep, and it is ready to go.
Entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, move to approve policy 8105 for second reading.
Second. I'll second. Perfect. It was moved by trustee Kit and seconded by trustee Ross. Any questions? Discussion? Let's see, none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Excellent. Okay, next one is a second reading of policy 1300.
And there are some amendments based on some work. Those are either redlined or highlighted for you. And then probably the most, well, there are two things. So we really recommend that not every policy is sent out for specific review. Certainly it's available, and since we're doing it in a work session and then first read and second read, our public has really 3 opportunities to do that. There are certainly some that are really important that we want to make sure. We just don't want parents in the habit of saying, oh, that's a policy, delete. And so that if we are asking for specific feedback. So I think the words when appropriate there. And then, which certainly doesn't preclude any other comments from coming. And then we have worked with our directors on what might be a reasonable schedule as far as review of policies. So looking at where their workflow is and when the months are that this would fit into their rhythm and routine. We also looked at the number of policies in each section. So you can see that there are a couple of series that are combined together because there really aren't very many policies within those sections. And so this would be our recommendation. It also gives you May, June, July, and August without policy review for a couple of reasons. Number one, May's really heavy with graduation, and you have a lot of responsibilities there. And then June, July, and August, since many times we use staff in order to review it or edit it or to collect information, most of our administrative staff may or may not be available to us in June, July, and August. So that's kind of the reasoning in there. And I do think that we heard from all of our directors saying that these would be appropriate times for them to comment and make sure they're available in order to support the board if they had changes they wanted to suggest. I think those would be the essence of the majority of the changes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we approve for second reading policy 1300 amended this way on line 41, strike out when appropriate. When this was drafted, it was intended to reflect all policies. And we didn't want to get into the weeds of how that was accomplished, but was reflecting on our experience at a National School Boards Association meeting and studying how policy process works and making sure that our policies are available there and that we have a robust comment and feedback session from the public. There are exemplars in Idaho of how this could be done. The Coeur d'Alene School District, for example, where you're not having to send a policy a day to parents. We could ask our clerk to come up with some procedures of how that might look to see if the intent of the board was followed. But it was intentional, and the words when appropriate is too vague.
Time out just 1 second, trustee Westfall.
That was a really long motion.
So
I'm
she,
sorry, I started talking about the reasons.
Yeah, let me-
Before there was a second.
let me try and make sure everybody understands the motion. Correct me if I'm wrong, trustee Westfall. Trustee Westfall has moved that we approve for second reading policy 1300 with the change to line 41, removing when appropriate.
That would be page 1300-2.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Was that enough for what you, perfect. Okay, so it was moved by trustee Westfall, seconded by trustee Ross. And any questions, discussion? Trustee Westfall spoke to her motion in the middle of it.
Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes for second read. Next one is a first read, the 5235 policy staff health.
Is this a first read or is this just in my memory that we've done this before?
We saw it at the work session. Yeah, so that's a hard, we saw it at the work session. This is the official first read.
We talked about this.
Yes.
Yeah, so there are no changes since the work session. It's just completing and following ISBA policy.
Would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the first read of, where's the number? Policy 5235.
Second.
Perfect. It's moved by trustee Keller and seconded by trustee Kip. Any discussion?
I would love a definition of contagious disease or something more specific. I mean, the common cold is a contagious disease. And so I'm sure this is meant for something larger than that.
We will check in with ISBA and see if they have a definition of contagious disease.
And my next question on this would be, would it be pertinent or does it not matter, as this would be kind of an HR to have either a time limitation or a financial limitation, as we have added that we will be compensating during all of these things. And I'm sure, I don't know that, but I would wonder if we should look into something legally, time-wise or financial-wise that we should be aware of that I'm not.
So from a standpoint of legal obligations that we're putting the district under, or like monetary obligations and legal obligations, okay?
Correct. Before it becomes pertinent to put them on a type of a leave, or I just don't know, but I'm guessing because what we've done is we've added this whole second part that says that we will bear the burden, that financial burden, but we didn't cap it at a certain amount. And I don't know if it's pertinent to, but I guess I'm looking for some additional input from legal experts on.
That could be a giant loophole if we don't close it, is what you're saying.
Excellent. Anything else? Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. I definitely heard we all said aye, so I'm just gonna move on. Excellent.
And D again are just policies as we continue to clean that need to be retired because they are reflected in more current policies.
Entertain a motion.
I move that we remove policy 8003, 8006, 9100, 10,017, 3310, 10,019, 3560, 10,020, 3330, 10,023, and 3510.
Are some of those ones that are the new one, those?
So yeah.
I think some of the ones you read are intended as.
Yes, you also deleted the current policy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Just
the
read- just
3,300 are the ones we're
Yeah, read
keeping.
the ones on the left under D.
You can just say the ones listed in the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I move that we remove the policies listed in the agenda that are duplicates or old.
I'll second that.
Perfect. So
I was like, wait a minute. we're gonna-
Trustee Ross.
It's like cleaning a lot of policy right
Trustee Keller, thank you. Yeah, so only retiring, removing the ones that are duplicates or older, keeping the ones that we have.
We shared with you the current ones, and
Yes.
then you can also agree.
So we
with
know
us
where
that
they
the
are. Yeah.
caveat is
Yes.
there.
Thank you, which I do appreciate that.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
On one, on policy 3330, I've just been looking through this. I'm just looking for a point of clarification on the, second, well, the numbers go all the way down. On line number 166, it talks about, those who are able to carry a weapon. And it says, number 3 on line 166 says, a person or employee of this school or district who is authorized to carry a firearm with the permission of the Board of Trustees. Just as a point of clarification, are there currently people, anyone currently authorized besides, it's just the student resource officers do carry a weapon and that's the only one? Okay, that's what I assumed, but I just, for my own clarification, wanted to make sure I understood that. Thank you.
Currently.
Oh,
For this moment.
Right,
yeah.
right, as of today.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we have a legal update.
I think Maren is with us tonight. Or Maren has not been feeling well. You want to check and see if we can find her really quickly? Or
earlier.
she was here earlier, but she has, I think she had the opportunity.
She says she does not have anything for the legal update.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect.
Sorry, she emailed me.
Okay. Can you, oh, I just closed this out, which was not a good move on my part. Can we bring up the superintendent comments there, Peter? Are you logged in where I can see them?
Jeez,
I
not
just-
currently on.
Do you
just
want,
posted
I can,
that.
I can read them if you'd like
Thank
me
you.
to.
Awesome.
So title funds, carry over and waiver.
So wanted to know that we are working with title funds. There is some discrepancy between the State Department and the federal on whether or not we can carry over more than our normal expectation. We received a free ride last year. We believe there's another free ride. The reason this is important is there are some monies that we weren't able to expend because we didn't have those programs during this year. And if we can't get that carryover amount, we need to find ways to spend them or we give them back. So we will find a way to spend them. Our preference would be to be able to carry them over and spend them for their intended uses. So I wanted you to be aware we're working through those.
Attendance.
Attendance, actually just wanted to point out in the consent agenda that we actually gained a few students. So we're holding our own during this time. So that's really important. I think we can go back and forth during this time, but it's a good sign. Okay.
Excellent. Vaccine clinic.
So vaccine clinic, we are hosting another clinic here at the district office right here tomorrow. Oh, it isn't Tuesday. It would be on Wednesday that we're hosting for our employees and any of their family members who might be a part of the groups that are there. We have 77 people signed up and those on the wait list. So we still have employees, the majority of those are employees who haven't yet had the opportunity. Many of them will get the Johnson & Johnson, which then is only a one shot.
Excellent. The update from the legislature, JFAC.
Update from the legislature, and I don't know whether you pulled out that comment because you're watching legislation as well. We currently are watching out of the Senate Affairs House Bill 122, which does allow employees who have concealed carry licenses to be on our campuses without our knowledge. They don't have to tell us. Previously, this has been the responsibility of a trustees board in order to make this decision. This particular bill removes that. Senator Patty Ann Lodge, who actually chairs this, has another, so it would be a Senate bill that actually allows trustees to continue to make this decision and some requirements. So we'd say, hey, and we want you to have this type of training, or you get to participate with the Nampa PD and X amount of training, or here's where you can do that. I haven't seen the progress of that. So that is something that we are a little concerned about. We're also following and trying to support House Ed actually tabled this morning, full day kindergarten, and being able to pay for that. There may be some hope that that would come back. And word is that JFAC will take up the education budget again tomorrow and make some corrections or changes. So we'll be watching that to see what that means.
The lotteries is on there. I wanted to hear about that.
So that is a bill, House Bill 72, and we believe that will go back as well. The monies from the lottery come into school district to support our student occupied facilities and maintenance in that. We probably aren't as impacted as some other districts, but it is a pretty important source, and just axing that does have an impact. And let's say that it might not impact us, the legislature still does have to find money to backfill and make sure that those payments are full, and they hadn't yet considered that.
Okay. And then the last thing, the new billboard campaign.
So starting today and going through, I have the date, April 15th, we are running billboard campaigns around some of our buildings. So full day kindergarten, Nova, the Ridge, so our K-12 program at Park Ridge that we're expanding, and Union High School. So just wanted you, there are 3 billboards around the town that you should be able to see those on, and so why don't you keep your eyes out for those?
Thank you. Trustee comments. We'll start with Trustee Westfall first.
Oh, I was napping, sorry. Just continue to remain grateful for our voters and our taxpayers as I think about the, replacing our first sets of devices and their support for our levy that makes so much happen for our kids.
Excellent, thank you. I'm gonna jump around. Trustee Rose.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Kelly.
Thank you.
Trustee Kipp. Excellent, none for me this evening. Trustee Keller, board self-assessment.
Sorry, I was not remembering that I was doing this. Board members were, yeah, I think we've done a great job tonight. I think we've had some really good discussions. I think we've met in the middle on some things. The agenda was well designed. The board stayed the order and the focus. I feel like we've done a good job of not going into the weeds, which was what we assessed last time, was maybe we spent too much time going off the side. I would rank us as satisfactory on having an adequate opportunity to participate. We've been courteous, dignified, and fair. Parliamentary procedure, I think I messed up once, but I appreciate you. Sorry, I wanted to talk about something before the motion was done, but I'm learning, so I apologize for that. I realized after I did it that I was wrong. Sense of responsibility and excellence in governing the district. Yeah, so I would rank us as satisfactory tonight. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, upcoming meetings. Don't forget tomorrow we have a work session. at 6:30
Short.
short.
Are we continuing with our work sessions on the first?
So yes, but the first Monday is April 5th, so that will be, yeah, which is on here.
Tomorrow's an executive session. Work
Yes,
session.
yes, so it is a work session, sorry. Tomorrow in exec session, okay? No action will be taken at all tomorrow. Work session on April 5th at 6:30. And then regular meeting April 19th at 6:30 that we've referenced a few times. I will entertain a motion.
Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees in Nampa School District number 131 recess from a public meeting into executive session in the manner and for the purpose authorized by section 74-206 Idaho Code to discuss matters pertinent to this district. Specifically subsection 1B to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. And J, to consider labor contract matters authorized under section 74-206 1A and B.
A second?
Perfect. So it was moved by trustee Kip and seconded by trustee Ross. Roll call vote.
Trustee Westphal?
Aye.
Trustee Ross?
Aye.
Trustee Kip?
Aye.
Trustee Keller?
Aye.
Chairman Simpson?
Aye.
We don't need our computers. Yeah, it doesn't look
Adjourn.